Hello, my name is Alexandria Peters, and this is about my time at ASU pursuing my master's in social work. Things I learned while I was a student at ASU. I learned many things while at ASU. One of the most valuable lessons was how to perform an assessment. This was so important because the job I hope to do in the future is to be an assessor. So the ability to be able to perform a thorough assessment is going to be necessary in my future career plans. I learned a lot about the developmental stages that I was not aware of prior to entering the social work program, which helped me understand a lot in my current job of some of the behaviors I was seeing in the children were developmentally appropriate for their age. I feel like this will help me as I want to work with children. I will be able to identify whether what they are doing is developmentally appropriate or not. I also feel like learning these stages will help me with adults in recognizing maybe the stage of development they are stuck in and why they're unable to complete maybe some of the tasks that would be age appropriate for them to complete. The assignment I learned the most from was the assessment based on the movie character in Social Work 606 assessment of mental disorders. I learned a lot in watching the Precious movie about trauma and the effects of trauma, the diagnosing of Precious, the doing the case assessment and the treatment plan. It was really a multi-step assignment that we got to see all the way through. It was very much like having a client in an internship that you would do an assessment, do some diagnosing, and then do the treatment plan. Learning how to use the DSM-5 was another huge thing I learned in that class, and how to effectively use it and how to eliminate disorders and some of the differences between some of the disorders that are fairly close, but there's some minor differences between them. I learned a lot about telehealth due to COVID-19. I feel like that is going to be something, especially as I enter the workforce, that is going to be something I'm going to have to do, as we're still in the first wave of COVID-19 and we have yet to see the second wave. So I feel like we will see a transition back to telehealth when the second wave hits. And I feel like getting to use those skills in my internship and practice them as a student will help me as a clinician in the future. Things I learned continued. I learned a lot about ethical practice in every class I took throughout my MSW career. Ethics was a big thing that was hit in every class about how to ethically engage with clients, colleagues, and the community. The portfolio class really enhanced my understanding of micro, meso, and macro intervention levels of practice. Prior to this class, I often got micro and meso level of intervention a little confused because sometimes they're kind of overlapping. I learned a lot about who I was as a person by many of the self-reflection assignments during my MSW career that helped me do some self-assessment and some self-awareness of where my values lied, which will later help me identify potential value conflicts as a social worker that I will need to discuss in supervision to make sure I'm giving the client the best care possible. Things I would tell incoming students. My favorite class I took was an extra class that I just took because it looked interesting. It was social work, 526 mental health and sentencing. I loved every minute of that class. I found it very interesting how mental health courts worked and the various different sentences that individuals with mental health issues could play into. Do any extra certifications you want to do as a student. It's cheaper that way. You get the student rate. My play therapy certification ended up being $500 cheaper because I was a student. I wish I would have started my EMDR certification as a student. Social Work 693, the final class, isn't as hard or scary as it sounds, I promise. I was initially very anxious about the class, but the further we got into it, the easier I found that it became. I did initially have some struggles with Digication, but I was able to reach out to the Digication helpline and get a lot of help with figuring out the issues I was having. Also, I found 693 very rewarding to see all my work come together towards the end and see how far I had come from my first day at ASU as a student to the end of my time as a student. Things I would tell incoming students continued. Start looking for internships early, especially if you live out of state. You may not have an internship that's already been established with ASU, so you'll have to get a contract going, and that can take a while. So start looking as early as you can. Get involved in student groups. Even if you're an online student, it helps you feel more connected to the campus by being involved in various things. I got involved in the Social Work Honors Club after my first semester. Practice self-care regularly. It will be important to prevent burnout. By practicing self-care, you should also schedule time to get your assignments done so you're not rushing to get things done last minute and feeling additional stress on yourself. Once you start your internships, you will notice a decrease in time to get things done because you will have internship hours, potentially work, and other schoolwork, so time management will be very important. Future plans. I hope to become an assessor for the University of Kansas Health System. I'm currently employed there as a family and youth specialist in the pediatric acute mental health department. In becoming an assessor, I will use many of the skills I learned throughout school. I will use the skill of being able to assess a client, developmental stages, and rapport building. Because of the short, brief nature of the kids' stay, it is important to be able to build a rapport relatively rapidly with the kids to get the information you need for your assessment to best help them with treatment during their stay. I will also use the skills I learned at my internship in suicide assessment and safety planning, as upon their intake as an assessor, I would do both the Columbia Suicide Scale, and depending on how they scored, I would determine their needed precautions during their stay with us and help them develop a safety plan to keep them safe while in the hospital. I also want to open my own private practice as a play therapist. This will use the skills I learned while getting my certification in play therapy during school and my skills I learned of developmental stages during my schoolwork course at ASU, as knowing what is developmentally appropriate for children will be very important in future careers I will have. I intend to pursue my LCSW. I intend to sit for my LMSW at the end of July. That way, when graduation rolls around in August, I will be ready to begin looking for jobs and applying. Last but not least, I want to say thank you to all my professors and other students who helped me during this journey, whether it was answering my questions about assignments or studying together before a test. I just want to say thank you. And thank you for listening to my presentation.